Hi, welcome everyone to PopCultX. I already forgot what episode it was.
Episode 98. I just told you like 30 seconds ago.
I'm 45. My memory is so bad lately. You have no idea.
Oh,
people's names at work.
Same here. I mean, I watched a movie last night, and earlier today I was like, what did I watch last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, age.
I'm going to have to start writing it down because you asked me, what did you watch? And I'm like, I didn't watch anything. I know I watched something, but I didn't just sit in a dark room like scratching my head. So anyway, all right, episode 98. Hi, welcome everyone to PopCultX episode 98. Here we are again talking about pop culture, all things music, comic books, regular books, literature, all that fun stuff with your hosts, Gabriel and Danny, as always. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Danny, what have you been up to?
Not too much. I watched a few movies, watched a few TV shows, watched Ted Lasso premiered. So super excited for that. As you know, friend of the show, Tori King, and I have our little Talking Ted little just little show we're doing under the PopCultX umbrella. So if you haven't caught that, go watch that. If you're into Ted Lasso, season 3, episode 1 is really fun. They titled it "Smells Like Mean Spirit," right? So of course a play on, I'm guessing, Nirvana "Smells Like Teen Spirit." But it was a really good episode. It's really fun. I won't get into too much of the details on it because I want you to go watch the other show, everyone out there. If you haven't seen it, it will give a better insight to our thoughts on it. And right now I forgot as well. So I watched Party Down. That's a really fun show. The reboot, I guess you would say, 12 years after the original one came out. I finally got to see All Is Quiet on the Western Front, the winner of the International Feature Film for this year's Academy Awards. And it was very well done. It's very cinematic in its scope and the way it was shot. So I can understand why it won for both cinematography and the best score, because the music did amplify the scenes. And when you heard those tones that they used over and over again, it was like, oh, something bad's going to happen. It was just like a boom. It was really cool.
Yeah, nice. Well, I have been pondering about Aliens for the last couple days.
Okay.
My sister-in-law actually asked me randomly as we're celebrating my goddaughter's birthday if I believe in aliens. And
random.
It made me start thinking about aliens in pop culture. One of my favorite aliens of all time, one of my favorite shows of all time is American Dad and Roger. I don't know if you're a fan of the show, but when I think of aliens, like he's the first thing that pops into my head. Like I wish he was almost real so that I could hang out with him. He's sociopath, but like, that's kind of funny way. But then I started really thinking, and there's like tons of alien references or aliens within pop culture. And so I was kind of curious, of all the aliens that have appeared on our small screen, big screen, books, comic books, all of that, what are some of the favorite aliens that you may have? Do you have any favorite aliens?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, there's definitely some memorable ones. I mean, you think just like to Aliens, the movie, right? The Xenomorph. Yeah, that's like probably the most famous alien, I would think, because it's right there in the title. And whenever you think of alien, you think, someone bursting out of a chest. That's what I think of.
Right. But she's also like the baddest bitch of aliens, I think. Like when you think of a really scary, I mean, that's the scariest alien that I can think of is that big giant queen xenomorph, right? Like Sigourney Weaver with like that little construction machine suit that she had.
Yeah.
Get away from her, you bitch. And then like the tail and the acid blood, like that's probably the most fierce, like scary alien that I can think of. Maybe the alien from Signs. Did you ever watch that M. Night Shyamalan movie where it sort of like runs across the screen? That one wasn't that scary for me, but I definitely think it was Xenomorph.
I mean, it wasn't scary, but that moment, I think, building up to it, right? The whole part of that movie where it builds and builds and builds. Are we going to see this alien? What is this? Then all of a sudden, right there, flashes on the screen and just makes you like, whoa. That was such an awesome moment in film for me. Yeah.
I think that if I had to, like, you kind of think, okay, there's this scary alien that we want to kill, a la like Independence Day, and then there's like the fun-loving alien that you want to be friends with, like E.T., Alf, Mork from Mork and Mindy. So there, it's like we have like that dichotomy of like either they're super freaky evil and you want to kill them immediately, or they're really friendly. So like if an alien ever does show up, like it's going to be like a 50-50 bet on whether or not we're going to kill it, right?
That is very true.
Americans, like I'm pretty sure someone will probably shoot it dead, and our luck, it'll probably be like a friendly alien,
right?
And I guess before he dies, he calls for help and is like, "Oh, they're assholes."
I guess if an adult finds the alien first, they have to be good-looking alien, right? Not a scary one looking. Or if a kid finds it, it doesn't matter what they look like. Yeah. I guess this is how, think of E.T. Kids find it first, they befriend it. But if you think of like what's an adult one, like Mork and Mindy, right? So Mork is a humanoid type of alien, so he gets befriended there. Or even like Third Rock from the Sun, those are aliens, right? So they came in and they're investigating us, and they were more of the human-looking alien. So maybe it's just who finds them first and what they look like.
Yeah. And I guess that's just our ego. Like if they look like us, they're not evil.
Maybe, yeah.
But if they look, I mean, that is typical. Like that's American attitude, right? If they don't look like us, we have to hate them and kill them. But anyway, that's a different topic.
Well, I mean, think about like Superman. He's an alien to our planet, right?
Yeah, Superman. I mean, there's a ton of, I mean, if we're going to open up the book, on superheroes being aliens, there's a multitude of superheroes as aliens that come and protect our planet and aren't from here. And then you have what is that one super violent sort of take on Superman that was Image Comics, Invincible.
Yeah. Okay.
Where he's like a Superman and everyone thinks, oh, he loves the planet and he really like hates us.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of an interesting take on like the Superman as an alien and really taking into loving this planet. But yeah, so anyway, that's kind of why I was obsessed with aliens. Like when you start thinking about it, there is so much in pop culture when it comes to aliens. We're really obsessed with aliens and like life on another planet or in another universe. But yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. I haven't really been watching a lot. Just kind of into the dark space of the universe, wondering if there's life out there.
You just have a lawn chair sitting out there, just looking up at the stars and wondering. Yeah.
Just a glass of wine in one hand and just, staring out into the sky. What else can you do to pass the time nowadays? So,
well, here's a question for you for one. Would you consider like Captain Marvel to be an alien?
Yes, right. I would say so.
I mean, I guess it depends. Are we looking at the MCU version where she was a human, right? That got her powers from how is it in the comic books? I haven't read all of Captain Marvel yet, so I'm not sure.
I cannot say that I am a Captain Marvel
aficionado.
Aficionado. So I can't say that I'm like 100% on her origin story, but I'm pretty sure her powers are not of the human kind, and I don't think she's a mutant. So I'm going to have to say that she is outside of the human race, I think. I don't know. We would have to ask an expert if only we knew one.
well, maybe we'll get some insight from there. So I guess right now it's a good time. Let's go ahead and we have a fun interview for all of you, a special guest here at PopCultX. We were able to sit down and have a nice conversation with Kelly Thompson, writer of the ongoing Captain Marvel series. That's why I kind of segued there. And also writer of like Kate Bishop, Jessica Jones. She has a new book out from Independent Comic Book called Black Cloak, which is really good. She's also an ardent Marvel Snap player like I am. So we'll get into a lot of those with her. So why don't we just go ahead and roll this interview?
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Little Talk with PopCultX. I am Danny, and along with Gabe, we're thrilled and honored and delighted to be joined by our next guest this evening here on PopCultX, and that is the Eisner Award-winning writer for Marvel Comics, Kelly Thompson. So, everyone, welcome Kelly to the show. Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Now, as I've mentioned this before on our show many times, and Gabe will attest to, I'm rather new to the comic book world, having really started picking up the hobby in the last year and a half. And one of the first ones I picked up was Hawkeye, the Matt Fraction run of Hawkeye. And I really loved that character line, and I just loved the storytelling, the artwork, the visuals of it. And then when it ended, I just continued reading Hawkeye, and it kind of just slid right into your plate, especially as Kate Bishop. So you're probably one of my second runs I've ever read, and so I'm really thrilled to be talking to you. And that's just how I found out about you. Just a little backstory there.
Oh, that's crazy. It's always wild to meet like adults who find comics. I love that because I want more of you. I want more of you. all these people watching movies. Like, I don't expect all of them that they would like comics or the comics that are, creating these things they're loving in films, and TV. But I think a lot of people would, and I wish more of them would try it. What got you into it? Can I ask and take over the podcast?
Yes,
I'm
take
curious.
over.
I'm curious. What made you
was
pick
Gabe.
Up?
It was my co-host Gabe. He really had been I don't want to say forcing them on me, but he's been really talking a lot about them. Now, I've always enjoyed comic, especially superhero movies, and with the rise of the MCU and DC kind of sort of maybe starting to get its act together. But I decided with his, gentle urging to go pick up more issues and read them, and just the stories that are within there and the characters' development. It's just so much more robust, I think, that you can get from a single film. So thank you, Gabe. Sure. I'm really glad you made me do that.
Yeah, of course.
That's the best. I love it, Gabe. I love it. We need so many more. I mean, I want kid readers too, obviously, but there's not a lot of content created for them week to week, unfortunately. So I love it when we can pull in adult readers who really fall in love with the medium. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of got addicted to comics. My family kind of shares the story that when my mom would take me to my grandmother's when I was a kid to be babysat, she would buy me a comic and a Twinkie and then drop me off at my grandmother's house. Now I'm addicted to sugar and comics. I haven't heard a plate for that, but how did you get involved? What pulled you into the world of comics, Kelly? I'm interested to see, what books really spoke to you. Was it as an adult or as a child?
No, it was as a child. I mean, I actually went to school to study comics, so Archie Digests were the first thing I read because they were in the supermarket when I was a kid. So I didn't, you didn't have to go, which I think is important. You didn't have to go to a comic shop to like be exposed to comics, which is very hard these days, unless you're online. But even then, that's some caveats with that. So I think, but I didn't become like a full blown fan the way we sort of think of Wednesday Warriors and stuff until I was a teen. And it wasn't just because I discovered X-Men, although that was a big factor, but it was more the discovering of the whole community and that there were comic book shops and that you could do a weekly poll so that they'd hold their books for you and they'd get to know you and they'd know what you're interested in and you could talk to them about the books. Like, it was a whole thing, it wasn't just discovering comics. And so I didn't discover that whole thing until I was a teenager. And it was my brother and I had discovered not too long before the X-Men, the animated series. And then he came home from the mall one day jumping up and down because he had a comic book with Storm on the cover. And he's like, "It's the girl from the show." And I was like, "Oh my God." And that was it. I was done. So I mean, I was obsessed with it. I'm sure my parents are okay with it now, but I'm sure there were many late night conversations worrying about me and that I liked comics and everything. it didn't help that, a lot of that was in the 90s, where I'm sure they were looking at some of these covers I was bringing home and being like, oh my God, what is she doing? I mean, I had a Catwoman that was like that Jim Balance style. So like super cheesecakey, and it was like embossed or something. So she was like raised up or whatever. I mean, 90s, whoosh, wild. Anyway, so yeah, that was how I got in, and there was sort of no looking back. I went to school for graphic design for a while, but then I transferred out to go to SCAD, because at the end of the day, people who were studying graphic design were like dreaming about graphic design, and I was dreaming about comics, man. So I wanted to be where I belonged.
Now, you said SCAD, so that's the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Yes.
And it's cool that you're the second person we've had on our show that's been through that college there. We had artist Jacob Edgar on here recently. And so I guess it's a very prominent comic books school.
Yeah.
I mean, was that correct?
Yeah, there are tons of people. I'm going to butcher his name, which is a shame because he's a friend of mine, or was a friend of mine when we were in college together. But Brett Weldell, that did Southland Tales and all that great stuff. He was one of my, I don't know if we were in exactly the same class, but we were close. Donnie Cates went to SCAD for a while. I think he ended up like getting an internship and not graduating. I think, but it doesn't matter. You're learning all the same shit.
Right.
Sophie Campbell famously went there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and she and I did some gem together. She also does like incredible indie comics, and her Wet Moon comic is very much sort of inspired by Savannah and like a college arty lifestyle. Very, very fun stuff. Dark too, because Sophie likes it dark. But there's a ton of names out there that went to SCAD. I mean, for a long time, certainly when I was in school, it was really the only it was the only school that was like really teaching sequential art. Okay. Like you could get a few classes from, I think SVA had some classes that were sequential art focused, but like not a lot of writing, mostly art. And whereas SCAD had writing classes too. And then, Joe Kubert School, of course, remains one of the standard, but I sort of still wanted to go to college because I'd started at a 4-year institution, and it just felt, I think I also knew by that time for sure, I wasn't sure I was going to be someone who drew comics. I was leaning more towards the reality that I didn't have the patience to become good enough, or the interest really. It was like, well, I can do 10% of the work and maybe become a good writer, or I could spend my whole life trying to do this other thing that I'm not so great at. So, well,
have you always been a storyteller? I mean, writing or visual?
Yes. When I was very little, I wrote this story about these mermaid sisters, and then I made them into books, and then I made like a little die cut construction covers. So I didn't just want to create stories. I wanted to like publish and share them, and so it was very early age. That was all in there. So
very cool.
I was curious, Kelly, a lot of times when people go to college, they're of two different camps. One is the people that really support school and encourage people to go to school, and then other people who are saying, I went to school, I was glad I did it, but save your money, go out, live life, and kind of create what you want to create, whether it be comics or art or what have you. For those of people who are listening who are wanting to break into the industry, would you recommend the academic route? Or now that we have things like Kickstarter and DIY type stuff, would you is that a valid option now for people out there trying to get their big break?
I was gonna say I'm completely in the latter camp, where I loved my experience. I wouldn't change anything, but I was very fortunate that through scholarships and a couple loans, I didn't have to take out a lot of money personally to go. And I would never, especially in the world we're in now. I mean, if you're looking for a college experience anyway, I think SCAD is a great place to go. I have no issue really with, what I was taught there, or even that it costs a lot of money. I really enjoyed the experience, but just knowing what people are up against today and how expensive that stuff is, and I'm sure it's even way more expensive than it was when I went, I have to say it's totally not necessary. I mean, you can learn between a few of the good books out there, like Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, and really reading. And I mean, honestly, I would recommend, you don't have to do it for a site. I mean, although if you're good, you should, because we need more great reviewers, but reviewing for yourself in a journal, on a blog, whatever, reading comics and reviewing them, especially if you want to be a writer, it can teach you a lot about art, but it can't teach you as much. I mean, maybe I should rephrase that. If you think you want to write comics, maybe not go to the college for the comics, because it's not necessary. If you want to draw, I think that's a little more, I still think you can learn it, but I guess I just don't feel like it feels out of pocket for me to recommend that, but one way or the other, because I don't do that for a living. But if you want to write, I can't really in good conscience recommend that, when I think most of how you learn is through reading and examining other people's work critically. It teaches you what to do. It teaches what not to do. It's your greatest teacher, honestly. I think Kelly Thompson gave some incredible advice once about write a page. I'm gonna butcher this. I think it was, take a page from comics or a scene from comics that you like, write it as a script, and then rewrite it with like a different genre in mind, then rewrite it with a different artist in mind. Like, there are all these things you can do. And I mean, listen, they all require incredible discipline, but they are things that you can do on your own. That said, and I know this is a really long-winded answer already, so I'll try to wrap it up. But that said, Gabe, when you mentioned the Kickstarter and all of that, that's the stuff that gives me pause about skipping school. Because once you put something out there, if you don't have the right people in place for the quality control, I mean, yeah, you can get it published, you can get it out there, but now it's something with your name on it. Right. And if you did it too soon, the quality control factor can really hurt you. And I don't know, I'm very grateful all the time, both that Kickstarter exists now and that it didn't exist 10 years earlier, because I mean, like, I used it. I think Kickstarter's great. I published 2 novels on it. I think it's fantastic. It's not anything against Kickstarter or crowdfunding. It's just, I'm glad it wasn't there when I was 25, because I don't know what horrible thing I might have been able to talk some people into giving me money for, but I would not probably be happy to have my name on it today. And so I do think there's this, you know, we all want to get there. We all want to advance in our career so fast. And like, sometimes you can advance a little too fast. And now you've got this published work that in 5 years, you're bummed out that it's out there because you're trying to get work. And it's this thing that's sort of out there for you that that isn't up to your level now, you know? And listen, there's always you're always going to feel that way as a creator, because the second you finish your work, you're like, oh, I wish I'd done that, or, oh, that could be better, or whatever. So like, you know, you can't get too obsessed with that kind of thing. But I do think there's a certain point where you get a certain amount of professionalism, or you've earned enough money to hire the right artist or an editor or whatever, the things that are going to help you elevate what you're doing, you know, because I mean, I know writers are desperate to get work, and I know they can't afford a lot. But I just see a lot of artwork that, you know, I don't often read a lot of stuff on self-published projects, because if I see the art and it doesn't work, I just exit. So maybe the writing is bad too on sometimes, but like a lot of these projects, the art isn't there yet. You know, it's like close, or it's cool, or it's almost, but like, it's just not. And so I don't know. I don't know if in 10 years we'll have people having regret about that crowdfunding stuff or not. Maybe that's completely a fiction for me. I do appreciate how much more democratic it is. Like, it really does feel like a lot of gatekeeper stuff has been taken down, not because anyone took it down, but because the people kicked it down. And I'm glad they did. And I love that we're getting sort of more stuff out there. I just wish, for all of us individually, we all had a little bit more quality control. It can be hard.
Yeah. Would you say it's easier then to work on a project on a big publishing house, say a Marvel or DC, where you have the top tier editors, artists already in place to kind of bring your story to life? Or
well,
would you? Oh,
I think that's a great way to work. I mean, you learn so much. You learn about the industry, you learn about the process, you learn about everyone's jobs and how all important they are. Like, it's a great learning experience. But there are different downsides that you encounter there where, you're more limited in other ways. There's also the fact that it's very hard to get a job with Marvel and DC unless you've done some other work for some smaller houses. So it's sort of cart before horse a little bit. but I definitely recommend it as both a great, super fun time where someone hands you characters you've loved most of your life and lets you play with them, which is like a dream come true. And it's also an incredible learning experience.
With that being said, do you have a question, Gabe?
I think we're probably going to ask the same question, but with all of the characters that you've written for, Kelly, you've had some incredibly iconic characters. I mean, Captain Marvel, Kate Bishop, X-Men, Rogue,
Black Widow,
Black Widow, etc. Which was there any one of them that was just really a challenge for you that you thought, oh man, I have this really iconic historic character that I want to take on? Or was it a character that maybe you were just a really big fan of and you were sort of intimidated to take that role on as a writer?
I think I was pretty intimidated on Jessica Jones because, Brian Michael Bendis, up until I wrote her, he'd really been the only one to write her, except for when she appears randomly in other people's things, he'd been the only one to really write her voice. And so I was very nervous about taking that on. It was helpful to have his endorsement. That made me feel better about it. But I was pretty freaked out. But as far as like voices I was worried about, I mean, Carol's honestly the hardest one for me. She's got a super huge power set, which, is and be careful how I say this, because I saw someone the other day saying in some forum that I've admitted I can't write Carol well. So, you have to be careful how you say these things.
Goodness.
She doesn't come as naturally to me. I'm a normal, boring human, and she can reignite a sun. We have very different, it's not super relatable. Whereas Kate Bishop has more similar problems to, everyday people. And so that's a stretch for me. I also, I mentioned Donnie before. So I'll mention him again. I'm a big fan of Donnie personally and as a writer. Part of what I like about him as a writer is he has very different strengths than I do. He just seems to have no problem just making things huge. There's just like this huge confidence of like, well, we destroyed the moon. So what? And you're like, oh, okay. Like here, all right. So there's no moon now. Let me figure that out. So but there's a ballsiness, and it's really fun, I think, in his work that I'm not saying I can't do it. It just doesn't come as naturally to me. I have to really push myself to get there. And so it's been a challenge since the very beginning. To write Carol in an authentic way that's interesting. It's also hard because she is so powerful, to give her things to fight against. They have to be really big. And when you're writing superhero comics and you're sort of writing arc to arc, you sort of have to reinvent that every time. And, people are always asking me about this run of ours because, we're headed towards issue 50, which is so huge for Carol Danvers.
Yeah,
it's big. It's a big deal. And, we've had really pretty good numbers throughout, and sometimes really good numbers. And it's been incredible, but we never had enough runway that it was like, yes, plot your 20 issue magnum opus with Carol. You know what I mean? And that's not a criticism of anyone. It's just like every 5 issues, you gotta reset, and you're writing for the trade and you're whatever. And so it's hard to reinvent that wheel over and over again and keep it interesting and make sure you're saying something different. So Carol has been the hardest for sure, but I must have done something right because we're headed towards 50, right?
Yeah. Congrats on that. Now you also wrote Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps, which I read. That was a fun little storyline. And then because Captain Marvel also appears in A-Force. So did you have to reinvent her each time you were able to tell her story a little bit?
Well, so the Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps, that was my first Marvel story that I did. And that was a co-write with Kelly Sue. And, she'd really had like incredible ownership of that character at that time. And I was being brought in to co-write with her. It was a great learning experience for me. And I think every new writer, even if they've got experience at school or whatever, I think partnering new writers with veteran writers who know the business already is such a smart idea. I learned so much just from watching Kelly and Sana and how they interacted and everything. But yeah, I mean, Kelly Sue famously said to me that because it was a Secret Wars tie-in, and she was like, well, the good news is this is incredibly complicated mess. So if you can pile it in for this, like, you're going to be good. But so in that situation, I mean, she's really in charge. I mean, like, the themes and the ideas of like what all that's going to be are all driven by her. And I'm just trying my best to like do my job and maybe impress some people while I'm there. I remember she really liked this line I wrote, but then she rewrote it a little bit. And I was like, I think that's better, but either way, I'm not going to complain, because Kelly Sue, like, tweaking your work is like pretty fun, like, to be in that situation, especially then, because I'd written so little. I mean, I'd only really done Gem, and I'd written Heart in a Box, which was a graphic novel, but it wasn't out yet. So yeah. And then writing her in A-Force was fun. Part of it was fun because she's, in A-Force, you had like 3 team leaders, She-Hulk, Medusa, and Carol. And since Carol was so busy and she had her own book, anyone who had their own book, it was hard to do too much with, because you have to like sort of bend the knee to whoever's running their title. So like She-Hulk, the Charles Sewell book was being worked on at that time. So like I had this really good idea that I wanted to do for She-Hulk, and the editor was like, they're not going to let you do that. They're not going to let you do that. She's got her own book called She-Hulk. They're not going to let you do something crazy like that in A-Force. And I was like, oh, so like these are the things you learn as a newbie, right? But so because Carol had her own book, and she was like, I just wrote her as sort of almost more like a cameo character, where she just sort of like pops in and pops out, like as convenience allows, and tried to let it be like a tussle between She-Hulk and Medusa for the leadership, which I thought was fun, and sort of allowed Carol to be like, I'm just going to stay out of this. Like, it's fun to be the guest star, which was sort of where we ended up with Medusa too, where she was like, actually, it's really great to not have to be the queen and the person in charge. And so she sort of acted like a petulant teenager in our book. And I loved it. It was such a fun characterization. It helped that Ben Caldwell drew her all curvy, which I've never seen anyone do before. It was so fun. Anyway, memories.
Well, speaking, kind of fast forwarding to where we are today, you're working on a really exciting new book. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Black Coat.
Yeah, absolutely.
About Black Cloak?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. It's this really fun, sort of dark fantasy sci-fi book, like all sort of weird world building, but then it's also a detective narrative where they're trying to solve a murder case. So a lot of people are like, why would you put those things together? And I'm like, first of all, detective stories go with anything. You can put them in any scenario. Almost everywhere has murder. So we all need detectives. What a great society we have. What a great statement. All worlds have murder. Great. But it's a universal. It's like there are always
a universal theme. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is, I think, humanity, right? So yeah, I like mixing together things that I like. It's a peanut butter and chocolate theory, right? Like, I like this, I like this. Why don't they go together? Well, let's just do it. I'm very much helped by my co-creator, Meredith McLaren. She does art and colors on the book. And, she's just got a really cool modern style. It sort of looks a bit like animated cell painting to me, but she's got these really crazy influences. Like, you can see manga in there, but she also likes all this like really like classical Western stuff too. And then I'm always going more neon, make it more Blade Runner-y. So yeah, it's been really fun. It's been really exciting. We've got like a bona fide hit or whatever on our hands. Like we got to sell out on our first issue. So we have a lot of good press. It's been great.
Nice. Now I'm curious, because it is sort of your world building or creating. As a writer, how much with your partnership with your artists, do you get to the detail as far as the way of the look of the book? Or is that where your trust comes into play, where you give some direction but then you're allowing the artist to kind of take over and create on their part?
I think I write pretty tight scripts. I'm sure any artist that listen to me on a podcast would be like, this bitch writes super tight scripts. It's annoying. Those obviously loosen up the more I know you. So Meredith and I have worked on a bunch of things together. So I'm very familiar with her style. I'm pretty familiar with her instincts and like what she's interested in and the ways she goes. So I tried to write, but you're also building a new world. Like, I mean, that first script was super dense because you just have to, even if you know she's going to change everything, you still want to give her a blueprint, you know. Otherwise she's having to do everything, and that's not fair either, even though there's some nice freedom in that. I think we both prefer what we've been doing, which is to really meet in the middle. You know, it's like we've got this weapon we'll be using in the end of the book. And she just randomly sent it to me. I think when she was working on issue 3 or 4, she was like, hey, I designed this gun. Can we use it? And I was like, are you kidding me? Is it see-through? I was like, is it made of magic? I was like, yes, it's in, put it in, you know? And like, I asked her in one of the issues, they go to this section in one of the issues called the Trees, which is a area of the city, the walled off city. And, while they're there, they like eat ramen. And I was like, okay, this guy who runs this like little ramen shop, you know, this is his name, whatever. He's old, you know, make him a flyer type character, but I don't care. So in my mind, I'm like, he'll be like a fairy or a something. Right. And so she comes back with, she's like, what about this? For the restaurant. And it's like this crazy looking wolf guy. It's like the most perfectly designed character I've ever seen. It's the first pass. And then she adds at the bottom, she's like, and it's definitely a flyer. Like I got it from Japanese mythology. And then she like wrote all this other stuff with it. And I'm like, yes, John Osgood sold. Like she's just so good. And that's the best way that's the best feeling in the world, when you've put a little bit on a page and then someone's been inspired by that and like turned it into a hybrid of your two ideas. Like that's the best. Cool. It's like Christmas, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, I remember seeing at the end of issue 2 where she goes, non-flyers proceed with caution, and the big neon sign. So yeah,
it was a favorite bit of mine. And that there's actually, not to tell a million stories, I'm sorry, I feel like I haven't stopped talking since I got here. But that panel just wasn't working. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know it's not a huge deal. It's like not a full page or anything, but it's a pretty important little detail. And so I was like, well, what about if the colors elsewhere are really popping and like we really show that distinction in those two spaces? And she's like, okay, let me try that. So she did that. And I'm like, maybe we need some signage and like a thing. And then so she comes back with that magical symbol and that neon sign. And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, you nailed it. It's like one of my favorite panels in the whole fucking book so far. I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah. I went to a few different comic book stores this weekend to try and find issue 3, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I guess that's good.
I mean, it's good and bad. It's good and bad. I mean, it's good to know they're getting bought up. People are looking for them. And thank you for going and looking. But that probably means they're under ordered. And while that can mean a second printing for us, which is okay, you know, you always worry about how many customers you're losing in the meantime. And also, if that shop you went to, sorry to get in the weeds about this, but if that shop you went to doesn't have you and a lot of other people asking about it, they don't even know you're not seeing it. So they don't know to correct that order or to tell Image or Diamond that they want more. So, you know, it's a really, It's amazing comics are ever sold, to be honest. Like, they've made it so complicated and confusing, especially for new people, but also for me. Like, I'm just trying to run a business over here, and like, you know, hearing that it's sold out, you're not the first person I've heard that from. So like, how worried about that should I be? Should I be happy? You know, it's confusing.
Yeah, I guess I just need to be more vocal and get it on my pull list and get it ordered. So that's on me.
Well, that is definitely, if you have a pull, put it on your pull for sure. That will help for sure. Thank you. I don't like to tell people to get pulls because for some people it's just too much commitment. I also know other people who don't like it when, like, you know, I feel like good shops really pay attention to what you're reading, and they're good about putting new stuff in there. But some people are really thrown off by almost like that seeming presumptive, or them feeling pressured then to buy it. You know, I don't know. I feel like those are good shops, but I understand why it might be off-putting to people too, you know?
Well, Kelly, Danny and I are actually about to go to WonderCon this upcoming weekend. Are you a big con person? Do you like going out there and meeting, you know, your readers and your fans?
No. You really set me up there. It's not because I don't want to meet people. It's not because I'm a monster. I've had some physical things that make it pretty hard to do the physical drain of the con weekend. But mostly it's about harassment. I hate to say that. It's a real downer, especially if we're going to end the note on that. But, you know, I'm a woman writing comics. I'm also a fat woman writing comics. A lot of people don't like that. And those people who don't like it are assholes who are incredibly cruel. And so they're happy to, you know, wade around in that. And so I don't know. It's a decision I made pretty early on. Like, I'm a writer, not a performer. So I'll stay at home and write. That's what I should be doing. But it's increasingly difficult to do. And it also is a fucking bummer, man. Because I have a lot of really incredible fans who would love to see me and shake my hand or get a signed comic. I mean, I have a web shop that I do that with, but, you know, it's not the same. And tons of people want to meet me, which is such a cool, nice thing. And I always feel a little shitty about it. But I don't know. I dream that one day I'm going to go. If I do finally ever go, it'll probably be to ECCC, however many C's that is. Because I'm in Portland now, and it seems like a slightly smaller, easier con, and I'm sort of dying to go to Seattle. I haven't been yet. So it will probably be there if I ever like rip off the Band-Aid. But so far I've resisted.
You are very active on Twitter, so you interact with your fans a lot there. So I'm sure I'm appreciative of that because I get to interact with you there. So I'm sure a lot of your fans are as well.
Thanks. I try really hard. That's one of the reasons I opened the web shop, was because if people really wanted a signed comic, I wanted them to be able to find one. So I try to do that. I try to be pretty engaged on social media. I do a ton of interviews and especially podcasts, just because I try to stay engaged in every way I can. And I feel like there's a little bit of me that I even owe because I'm not doing that other stuff. You know, I mean, I know fans don't really see it that way, but it's just because they're nice. I feel that way, you know, like they give a lot. My fans they're honestly too awesome. I've been really sick this year. I've had a back injury and I was really sick. I got like a weird flu, and then I had a medication snafu. Like, it's just been a series of like just comedic overload of like things not sort of going quite right. And so I've been really behind, and like I have all these Substack backers. I'm very engaged on there usually, but you know, they've all been like waiting patiently while it's dark. And none of them are, you know, I feel like if you had shittier fans, your email box would be filled up with like, where are you? What are you doing? But like, my people are just cool, man. They just, they're just very chill and supportive and awesome. I'm very grateful for them.
Thanks.
Well, Kelly, real quick before we let you go, we are a pop culture podcast. So outside of comic books, what are you watching, reading, enjoying, listening to? Give us your quick rundown real quick.
Okay. Well, the number one thing I want to recommend right now, especially for people who listen to this kind of thing, is if anyone hasn't seen Extraordinary, Is that what it's called? On Hulu? Adam, was it called Extraordinary? Yeah, that's what it's called.
Extraordinary. Okay.
Yeah, Extraordinary. Maybe it's said Extraordinary. Maybe like that. Man, I'm butchering this recommendation. Anyway, it's incredible. It's incredibly funny. It's a short, like 6 or 8 episodes or something. You know how they do these days. It's superpowers, but told in just everyday life, like very like, it's not this, but I'll say this because people know what it means. It's like Office Space or The Office with superpowers, in that it's just like a 20-something comedy that then has these superpowers layered over it, and it's incredibly funny.
I'm seeing it now. Yeah, it looks good.
It's incredibly smart, and there's a guy in it that when you see him, I'd like you guys to email me,
okay,
and tell me that I was right, and that he is the craziest looking, most amazing character you've ever seen. And he should be cast as every weird guy in everything from going forward. He's incredible. And he's an incredible actor too. Like, I don't want to make it just about his physical self, but like, I'm telling you, go watch the show. Please. I want both of you to email me after you see this guy.
Okay. I'll go watch it. I'll watch it tonight.
He's incredible. Anyway, so that's one of my big recommends. Succession, new Succession has started up. I'll be watching that. I've been watching, we're only 2 episodes into Copenhagen Cowboy because I'm always a little questiony on Refn. I love Drive, is one of my favorite movies, but even though Only God Forgives is absolutely beautiful, I hate it. So you never know. Copenhagen Cowboy, we're 2 episodes in. It's so cool. And it's all the neon lighting of my dreams. I should make Meredith watch it. I'll be like, I want issue 6 to look like this. All this neon.
Perfect.
She'd be like, I quit. What else am I watching that's good? Well, I've recently been on a tear trying to see a few of the Oscar movies before the Oscars. And so that was a very nice week of watching movies, really good stuff.
Did you have a favorite?
Seen all that. I think Banshees was probably my favorite because it got me emotionally.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
I also don't want to really admit this publicly, but I've done that to someone, not with the fingers.
Oh, like, wait a minute.
But I had a friend that I just sort of ghosted. And then when she finally caught me out on it and like talked about it, I was like, listen, we're just growing apart. Like, I'm just not in it. But it was, so I was weeping, and it was like, it was the movie. It was that I was emotionally connecting to it and feeling like guilt and everything. But like, I already tried to repair those mistakes I made, and it was long since passed. So yeah, it was really good. But they were honestly all the ones I watched. I watched Tar, Banshees.
As a writer, did you see Women Talking, and how did you think about that one?
Not yet. I'm very excited.
Okay.
Sarah Paul. Yeah. I love Sarah Polley though, so I would be shocked if I don't love it. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. And we were going to watch it the other night, but we'd taken some edibles, and I was like, maybe Women Talking isn't the right vibe for the edibles. And my partner was like, I think probably you're right. And then we watched some Party Down instead, where they took mushrooms.
Very good. Yeah.
One of the first 10 minutes of that episode was one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen in my life. And not that the last 20 minutes were bad. They were fine. They just, that first 10, man. Oh,
I saw that the other day. That was a really good episode. Yeah.
It's hilarious. I mean, when Saxon comes out of that tree and goes, hey, a bird looked at me a certain kind of, I mean, I lost my mind. Sorry, that's not very good podcasting etiquette to talk about a thing in such specific detail that nobody could possibly enjoy what you're saying. I'm sorry. So yeah, Party Down, we're watching. Succession. I'm of course watching the new Top Chef. I love that shit. Yeah, it's good stuff. I'll be watching the new season of You, part 2 of the last thing or whatever. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that show or watched it, but it really took me by surprise how good it is. It's got a very good handle on what I know so many of us are interested in, which is the sort of bad guy as protagonist, or the, I don't know that I'd call Joe an anti-hero, but I guess you could make an argument for it in some of the later seasons. But, you know, as someone who has noticed that more than 50% of people I play on Marvel Snap have a villain as their avatar, even though the villains make up less than a third of the available avatars. I don't know what's wrong with you people, but we're supposed to want to be the heroes.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
anti-hero like fan. So
yeah, I'm an anti-hero fan. Yeah.
I love an anti. What are your fucking Marvel Snap icons? Tell me right now. What are the avatars? If you guys say Hobgoblin and shit,
I have Medusa as mine.
Medusa, that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Gabe, you're on the spot now.
I actually do not play that.
It doesn't partake.
That's good. Hey, save yourself, man. Save yourself. The amount of time. The amount of time I've lost. I'm sure some editors, if they're hearing this podcast now, they're like, someone take away her Marvel Snap account so she'll finish her work, please. Well, if you ever go on there, Gabe, please do me a favor and pick a goddamn hero for your avatar. We're superhero comic fans.
I will. I'm a big hero fan. I have to go with the heroes.
Good. I mean, me too. Listen, I love an anti-hero. I'm not saying you can't have White Queen. I'm just saying it's like Hobgoblin, Doom, Nimrod. Who are these people? Why are these your avatars? You want to be heroes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Typhoid Mary? Who the hell is a Typhoid Mary avatar? What are you doing? I mean, not that it's not a great character. I'm not trying to slam these characters. I find it weird because I was seeing it so much that I thought maybe there's more bad guy avatars than there are. And so I went and counted. And it's not at all. It's way less. It's way less than half. And I bet I should really track it and do an intricate graph on my Substack. But it feels way higher than 50%.
Yeah.
Like I'm always excited if I see a Cyclops. I'm like, oh, hey, fellow good guy.
Then you also see the generic default player one. So people who haven't bothered to change theirs.
That fascinates me more than anything, honestly. Like the same way it fascinates me if someone's had a Twitter account for 10 years and they've still got a little egg or something. Like, do they not know how to? That can't be possible that they don't know how to do it. So, and in game, of course, you know how to do it. How is it not the first thing you do? I think about the fact that I'd like a different avatar every time I play the game.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Very true.
Well, speaking of heroes, Kelly, for us comic book readers, you're definitely a hero of ours.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all the good writing. We definitely appreciate it. And I'm excited to read your new books, all of the new work that you come out with. So thank you once again for joining us here on our podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm sorry I ranted about so many weird things, but I appreciate it.
We love it. We love it.
We love it. Yeah.
This is the benefit of post-pandemic, still barely leave the house style reclusive writer. It's like if you get me on the right day, just unload all these non-spectacular thoughts that I've been saving up.
Nice.
But I had a really good time talking with you guys. Thanks so much for coming, and thanks for reading Black Cloak.
Yep, yes. Absolutely.
Thank you, Kelly.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a lot of fun. That was a really fantastic interview. You got to love someone that comes onto a podcast just raring to go with all those quips and thoughts coming rapid fire. So thank you so much. We definitely appreciate having you on our podcast once again. But that was a great interview.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. We really appreciate your time and just your willingness just to dive into so many topics that maybe weren't even comic book related. So thank you for that. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and with that said, I'm going to go run and try to find my own copies of Black Cloak, and that way I can start collecting it because it is a very great book. So to all of our readers, all of our listeners, and watchers of our YouTube, please go out and find that book if you can. I know it's sold out in a lot of different places, but maybe get your digital copy. Support good writers and good creators of good comic books. And if you have any friends or family that are new to comic books, definitely pick up this book because it's a good starting out point for someone who is maybe not the most avid comic book reader. And with that said, I think we want to thank everyone for tuning in to our podcast. Once again, we're getting close to that 100 episode. So definitely enter into our contest that we're having for a special prize. Danny can fill you in some of those details.
Or I'll just say see below in the details there. Yeah, we have, of course, we're giving our special giveaway for episode 100. If you haven't entered in yet, be sure to do so soon, because if we're going to pick the winner from one of those 4 different ways to enter, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or on our website. So all the details will be down below. Pick one way to enter. Go ahead and do it. Tell your friends. Use PopCultX100 hashtag, and we'll see you all next time.